Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker.
I am R.L. Syme, and I'm an author who loves readers.
Now, let's start the show. Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Authors Love Readers podcast. So happy that you're here with us today, and also with my guest, R.L. Syme. We got to know each other for once, I'm going to say this isn't somebody I know through NINC, but we are going to hang out together at NINC. Mm-hmm. In her other guise as Becca Syme, she runs the Better Faster Academy for writers and trying to learn to write, oddly enough, better and faster. And I have taken some of the workshops and the courses, mostly, and it focuses on finding your strengths. I'm always like, okay, I know I have the strength, make it work faster. But for this episode, we are going to talk about her life as the writer R.L. Syme. So first of all, do you go by R.L.? Should I call you R.L. or Becca?
I go by Becca. R.L.'s actually my Rebecca Lynn. That's like my legal name. And of course there's R.L. Stein, which is was one of my favorite writers growing up. So I love R.L. Syme as a writer name, but I go by Becca.
So if somebody calls you Becca Lynn, do you think you're in trouble?
A little bit, yeah. Especially if they say Rebecca Lynn, then I'm like, oh boy, like that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine, I don't have a middle name, but mine is Patricia.
Patricia.
Chills down my back. Okay, so Becca, who writes as RL, tell us what you write.
I write mystery currently, primarily cozy contemporary, but I kind of dabble in other suspense-ish genres, I guess. I used to write romance. That's actually how I got into the writing community and how I kind of came up, I guess, if you will, if there's a ladder. I came up in romance and really loved it and enjoyed it. But I grew up reading mystery and suspense, and that was what I always really wanted to write. So once I felt like I kind of understood the industry and I knew what I wanted to do as a writer, and I'd kind of done, a lot of different romance subgenres. And I thought, okay, now I want to try this mystery series that's been in my head for a long time. And so I wrote that in 2016, and now I write both fiction and nonfiction, as Pat mentioned. But yeah, I love it. I love being a writer.
And I'm immediately going to go off the structure of our interview and ask a question, because I'm curious if you think that having written romance are things that you learned by writing romance. Do you apply them in writing mysteries? Can you see how that's helped or changed?
Yeah, especially because I think especially in the indie publishing industry, romance writers are definitely known for kind of being on the cutting edge of like, oh, well, if you want to know, like, listen to what the romance writers are doing. If you want to know, like, what's going on. And I think that has been very true for me. I will often go to my friends who still write romance and say, like, what's going on? What's the new thing? So in marketing, that's definitely been true for me. In writing, it's interesting. If you would look back at some of my contemporary romance that I wrote in like 2013, 14, and maybe a little earlier, I was already writing in mystery structure and didn't realize it. And it actually was an issue because it'd be like the romance would kind of go by the wayside a little bit, and like they'd be finding clues and solving crimes. And then all of my readers were like, yeah, but the romance, Becca. And I'm like, oh, right. Yeah, I'm way more interested in like the villain and why they did all this stuff. And so that was kind of what clued me into shifting, was just recognizing that so much of what I had learned to do as a romance writer was not as natural for me. I had to kind of work to do that stuff. Whereas the mystery structure was like falling off a log. Like it's just my brain thinks in dead bodies and serial killers just without even realizing it. So yeah.
Isn't it interesting that we don't always see? I can remember getting a review on one of my romances about, oh, I love the suspense in this.
Yeah.
And I was like, what suspense? What are they
Yeah.
talking about? There's no suspense in this.
It's just
It's just a
story.
romance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I had an editor who said she only wanted to see books from me that had, quote, no plot,
Oh.
unquote.
Wow.
And I was like, I didn't know I had
I don't know how to do that.
so much plot. Yeah, pretty much I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, I took you right off into the woods, into the weeds
Yeah.
with the first question. But do you have a childhood book that addicted you to stories? Can you trace your interest in stories back to a specific book?
To the Chronicles of Narnia for me was that
Oh,
like the thing that I read where earliest I remember thinking, I want to do that. Like I want to do what he did in those books and make people just get totally sucked into something and then
mm,
feel like they're a part of another world for some time. And my mom read me the Chronicles of Narnia when I was very, very young. And so I remember that. But you know what's interesting is that if I think about the first story that made me want to tell stories, it was actually my aunt used to tell us bedtime stories sitting on the edge of our bunk beds
oh,
about this little girl called Thumbelina, and she literally made up this whole world. And I remember singing this Thumbelina song and like making up these Thumbelina stories along with her when I was very young, like maybe 2 or 3 years old. And so that for me was like, I was excited to go to bed at night because I knew we were going to get to talk about Thumbelina at night. And so I just had this like whole world that I lived in when I was really young that was like a verbal storytelling experience. And if I think about what attracted me to the experience of storytelling, it was that feeling of like, I can't wait to like climb into bed and be all warm and hear about Thumbelina, and that like just addicted me completely.
well,
Yeah.
Thumbelina wasn't she a character in a book or
I think she might have
or in a
been.
song? I
Yeah,
really do
there was a
associate that.
song.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there was a song about Thumbelina, but she never read us books.
She took
Like she
the
would just
and yeah
make stuff up.
freelanced.
For she would freelance and then she'd be like, what do you want to hear about tonight? What do you want, Thumbelina to have done or who do you want her to have met? And then she would just like make up these little stories and I remember it mostly because like I remember the music and the
Oh,
song,
that's wonderful.
which was so great, but then also because it was her telling to, but like I was on the edge of my bed all the time, just like, and then what, like that feeling. It was so great, and I've just always wanted to have that feeling for myself all the time and want to create that for people. So yeah, I
Did
love
you
it.
have a sense early that it was something you could do for a livelihood?
Um, that's a good question. I didn't know any authors growing up. Like I didn't really realize that authors were real people who were still alive. Like I
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
that it worked that way. And it's weird because like one of my grandmother's ancestors was Willa Cather. So like it
Hmm.
turns out that I have this like, literary legacy that I didn't know, but I found out when
Wow.
I was in college. And then and of course she's a big sense of place writer and like I'm a big sense of place writer, so I always feel real connected to her. But like when I was really young, I literally thought all the authors were dead, like that they were just like not alive anymore. And so I didn't know what new books were or new book releases or any of that stuff because we got all our books from the library. And so I didn't know that you could get paid to do this until I was like much, much older, like in late high school or college. And then
Oh,
immediately, as soon as I found that out, I'm like, well, that's what I want to do, clearly, because if you can get paid to do that, because I used to just write stuff like fan fiction and, that kind of thing. So I didn't care
Oh.
if I got paid for it or not. I was just going to write constantly. And I wrote, I pretty much, it was like, if I wasn't reading, I was writing. If I wasn't writing, I was playing the piano. If I wasn't playing the piano, I was sleeping. Like, that was my
That
life.
filled the days.
Yeah.
I discovered Marguerite Henry, who wrote Misty of Chincoteague and Sea Star, and
Oh.
these, as somebody said, girl meets horse books
Mm,
for,
I
kind of
love
young
that.
adult. And I discovered that she lived in the same county that I did. And
Mm,
that was like, I mean, it wasn't like I was looking for her. Somebody must have said that, but it was like real people who I could like run into at the grocery store, write books. It's
oh, I
not
love
just
that.
dead people in England. It was, that was my wow. That was a revelation, and thinking maybe I could do this.
I love that.
So, what surprising jobs have you held? As long
Oh
as we're talking
boy.
about livelihood.
Yeah. So I was a pastor. Like, I've been a
Huh.
pastor. I actually have like a degree in theology. Like, I have a theology degree. And I ran a youth center for a while. I've worked in food service. And actually the youth center that I ran was we had a restaurant in it. So when we started the youth center, I actually got to like open a restaurant and start a restaurant, which was super
Wow.
cool. Um,
Do you
Other
use that
stuff
in
is,
books?
so I do. In fact,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
the first contemporary romance that I wrote was all foodie, like it
Ah,
was all food related. And I love that because my early jobs in like high school and stuff were in delis and restaurants and stuff. So that was very much, and I always kind of wanted to do that. So when I had the chance, I took it really seriously and like made a menu and did my food costs and all of those things. And I was 24 years old. It was crazy. But it was so much fun. I had a blast. And yeah, those are probably the weirdest jobs that I've had. I don't know that I have led that kind of like exciting, super exciting life. I've been
so
writing for a long time.
when you got, well, that is the most exciting. That's
Yeah.
we get to live all the lives. Um,
Yes.
when you got the theology degree,
Yeah.
did you think that was the way your life was going to go?
No, in fact, so if I ever write a memoir, it's going to be called The Accidental Seminarian. Like, that's the title, because I 100%, in fact, so the story goes, and this was such a funny experience that my seminary cohort actually talks about it sometimes when we get together. Um, I'd opened this youth center. It was a nonprofit. It was associated with the church, but it wasn't a church per se. And I was looking for a degree that would be like a very specific type of leadership, the psychology of leadership and success degree because of the job
Mm.
I was running. And I found the degree, and it was an online, half in person program. I applied to it, etc. Never saw the word seminary on a single piece of paper because if I had, I never would have applied. Like, never ever. Um, I knew I didn't want to be a pastor because, well, I thought I didn't want to, but so we go to. I'm sorry, I have to laugh at this because this is literally like they still tell this story at recruiting talks for my old for my in my seminary I graduated from. They said we were all in orientation together, and the very first thing they said was "Welcome to Bethel Seminary," and I yelled "What?" really loud in the middle, and everybody laughed because they thought that I was joking. But like, literally, that was the first time that I realized I was not in graduate school because that's what I thought I was doing. And I was instead in seminary, and it just completely shocked me. And I said, because the guy came up to me afterwards and he was like, "That was a hilarious joke." And I'm like, "Dude, that was not a joke." And also, I would joke, I was like, can I get my money back? And he's like, well, you're here now. So, whatever. But because I knew the degree program, like I had researched the program and the professors and all that stuff. But I thought it was in the grad school part of anyway. So afterward, the guy came up to me and he was like, so can I use that in our recruiting talks? And I'm like, yes.
Oh,
Because I
that's
never would
funny.
have gone, like if I had thought it was a seminary degree, because I was looking for a psychology of leadership degree. So, which
It
it just was also
was
a
focused.
theology
Yeah.
degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
My accidental degree was undergrad. It's an English composition,
Ooh.
and for which there has never been a want ad. Nobody has ever asked for an English composition graduate.
I
But
love that.
I got to a certain point and I realized I could either graduate undergrad in 3 years or I could transfer to journalism, and it would take me 4 years to get a journalism undergrad.
Mm.
So basically, I graduated after looking at what classes my degree that would get me closest to a degree, and then filling in a few gaps. And it had the result that I petitioned to graduate the same day I declared my major, which made them a little cranky.
Ooh, I love that. But you went on to do journalism, right?
Then I got a master's in journalism in the
Yeah.
4th year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 degrees for the same amount of money, you
Ooh,
can't beat that.
that's really
So,
smart.
yeah, my mother always said, we should have told her just an undergraduate degree. We shouldn't have said we'd put her through 4 years of
4
school.
years.
We could have gotten a deal, and it was at Northwestern, which
I
the
love
price
that.
tag was quite high. So, okay, let's see what other. Let's talking about mothers and fathers. Do you have a saying that you hear yourself saying now that came from your mom or your dad?
Ooh. So I laugh like my dad. Like we have a joke kind of that every time my dad starts to laugh, he has this kind of particular cadence. And whenever we hear someone do that, all my family kind of looks at each other and we're like, "Oh my gosh, that's dad's laugh." And I found that they were doing that to me at a certain point. And I mean, my dad's still alive, but like my family we get together a lot. And I was like, oh my gosh, I laugh exactly like my dad. That's hilarious. But because I grew up in a very rural area, there are a lot of things that I say that the people where I live now don't say, because it's much more like it's not a rural area. But there are a lot of things, like I just did this post on my Facebook page about dinner, supper, like what do you
Oh,
call lunch,
yeah,
dinner, supper, and stuff like
yeah.
that. Every time I hear myself say supper at night, I think of my dad, because like he's the only person I know besides me who says that. But yeah, definitely, I feel like I picked up a ton of linguistic stuff from my parents for sure.
Do you have earlier, things that earlier in your life you fretted over and now you just don't care about it?
Almost everything, like, right? Like, it's so weird. When I turned 40, I just had that DGAF attitude. Like, I'm like, I'm good. You can do whatever you want. I'm fine. Like, I used to just worry so much about like, am I doing this right? And I don't know if it's just like you hit an age and you feel like, well, I know what I'm competent in at this point. So
Mm,
I don't really need people to tell me. Like, I've been playing piano for 41 years. So I don't need somebody to tell me that I'm good anymore. Whereas I feel like when I was younger, I needed that affirmation that I was like on the right path. And at this point, I just have so much knowledge of self that I kind of know when I'm good at and not. But I'm very much a person who, I think that caring about things is a benefit, like it's part of my personality, but also I don't want to care too much. Like, I want to care
mm,
what people think because I want people to be happy, but I don't want to care so much that I make myself unhappy or like ruin my own life to make
or
someone else happy who's
paralyzed.
just not happy, right? I'm like, I
Yeah,
just care.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Or it paralyzes you.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like,
Yeah.
especially because I'm a thinker by nature. And so I used to spend a lot of time Like, oh my gosh, what are they going to think if I say that? What is someone going to think of me? And at this point, it's like I've gotten the 1-star reviews. I've gotten a lot of them in my lifetime. I've gotten the feedback of like, you're not for me. And I finally have just switched over to this place where I'm like, right, well, I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. And you have a right to your opinion, whatever it is that you think about me, and I'm not going to let it keep me from being who I am. But I wasn't
Mm,
always like that.
mm. Were you ever, when if people said negative things to you, did it ever strengthen your resolve?
That's really interesting. I'm trying really hard not to talk about strengths, which I know isn't a rule that you set, but I'm like,
No, no.
I'm trying to put this in words. Like my mom and I are very, very different. My mom was a Division 1 athlete. She's worked in Division 1 athletics. She's extreme, like highly competitive, right? And so when someone says, like, I don't think you can do that, she's like, well, let me show you just how
Mm,
competent I
mm,
am, right? Like, she's very good at that. Even negative criticism doesn't bother her, like, it doesn't phase her in the same way. I am not that person. I'm the opposite. Like, if you tell me, like, you can't, that's not good or you didn't do well, I'm like, oh boy, I better look at what I did wrong so I can do better. And so I very much used to crumple under criticism, and
mm,
now I feel like
mm,
I've gotten better at not crumpling, but I still very much take that critique to heart of like, is there something I can do different? Can I change this? Is does this need to be changed? So very different in that way for me.
I was just talking to somebody I went to high school with, and she mentioned a teacher that she liked. And I said, "Ugh," because that teacher, among other things, told me that I could not write. I could never write. I should give up. I would never be a writer. That was junior honors
Oh,
English. And what's so interesting to me is it did, yeah, it was a huge blow, but it also set up the says you lady, you know.
right.
And what was wonderful was the teacher the next year, whom some of the other students didn't like particularly, was the perfect antidote, because he was not real touchy feely, not real involved with the students, but he was really fair but hard. So
Mm.
when you got a grade, you knew you had done a good job, and there was no question.
Oh,
And
I like that.
yeah, it was just the right person for me. I think that's so interesting. I was so fortunate to have him.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to have the says you lady
Yes.
reaction too, but his um, detachment in a way and fairness were just a balm after that. So
Oh, good.
yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, the subjectivity of something like, "Oh, you can't write," right? I
yeah.
always think, well, you never know why she would say something like that. She might have actually been super jealous of your talent and like, whatever. But also, I love that you responded in that way, in the way of like, well, I know I'm good at this, so I'm going to keep doing it.
I didn't
Because
really
not
know
all of us
I
can
was
do
good
that.
at it. I didn't know I was good at it, but I was,
Oh,
but it triggered the stubbornness.
oh, I like that. I love that.
It was not confidence. It was says you lady.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, let's do a couple easy ones. What's your
Yeah,
favorite color and why? Do you have something you associate with it?
purple.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know why. It's weird. I never used to like purple, and I just kind of found myself gravitating towards purple. Later in life, I realized I have green eyes, and so purple looks really good. Like it's a good color combination with my eyes. And I think it actually came about from wearing clothes and makeup that I started to like
Uh,
purple.
uh,
But I love purple. Yeah.
None of this later in life stuff.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about orange?
Oh, interesting. So I associate orange with athletics because my
Huh.
high school colors were orange and black. and
Uh-huh.
and it was like a weird kind of, not like Tennessee orange or Texas orange, which are also athletic colors, but it
Yeah.
was like a
Uh,
weird bright neon orange kind of, and I never liked it. But I almost bought an orange car last year because it was Texas orange, and I really like that kind of fall, like deep orange. I love that color. So yeah.
I had a theory that orange, liking purple and liking orange were mutually exclusive, and
Oh.
talking to people here has pretty much shot that. But it was my theory because I love orange and I do not like purple, and they are opposite on the color wheel.
They are, yeah.
Yep. So, but my theory keeps getting shot down. You didn't shoot it down totally; you just wounded it a little.
Well, because I don't like straight up orange, right? Like that kind of primary color orange. All the oranges that I like are like either gold colored
Mm,
or like that burnt orange kind of Texas orange color. Yeah.
yeah, really a fall color.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
fall color, yeah.
So, how about a favorite taste?
Ooh, I'm a vinegar person. Like I love sour.
Interesting. Ah.
Love. Like I'm a sour pickles, olives. I drink, don't like, I guess we're recording, so it's okay that, but like don't tell people this. I drink vinegar. Like not a lot, not like water, but like you know how they say a little apple cider vinegar is good
Oh
for you,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I take a shot of vinegar, straight vinegar every
Woo!
morning. And I actually really love it. And I usually have on my salad only vinegar and not oil at all, just because I love the sour taste.
I shouldn't react too strongly because once I took a wine tasting course, I knew I liked the really dry wines, but I got to one and I said, "Oh, I really like this," and the instructor said, "I think that's starting to turn to vinegar," and he was not kidding. So,
Oh, I love that.
yeah,
I love
so
that.
I may be there, not quite as strong as you are, but tending that way. Okay, I'm going to send you to a desert island. It
Okay.
is a very strange desert island because it lets you have the ability to play movies, but only three. So you can take three movies. You can have three movies with you on this desert island, but you have to watch them over and over and over if you want to see something. Which three
Ooh.
movies?
Um, so one would be Lady Hawk,
Hmm. Hmm.
just like both from a
Hmm.
story perspective, and I feel like I see new things in that movie. That's probably what I would pick, are the movies where I feel like I see a new thing in it every time I watch it. So probably a little bit more nuanced stuff. I would pick one of the rom-coms that I love, which, knowing me, would probably be That Old Feeling with Bette Midler. Um,
Oh.
I don't know what it is about that movie, but I think I probably have seen it 100 times. Um, and then I probably would pick something that I have never seen before, but that everybody else likes, like Pulp Fiction or something like
Oh,
that.
that's a gamble. Ooh.
Right. But because I would intentionally try to pick something that everybody else likes, because I would want to wait as long as I possibly could before I, like, close to death, and then I would watch Pulp Fiction so that I could have one more brand new movie experience that I'd never ever seen before. Because I really do love, like, watching things I've never seen, and I especially like watching things my friends really enjoy that I haven't seen.
Do you find that
So
you enjoy the how? What percentage would you say of things that your friends have really enjoyed? What percentage do you enjoy?
I think it would be a smallish percentage, like 25% probably, unless I watch it with them. Because I do find that, like, if I watch something somebody else really loves and I don't like it, I watch them watch the movie because I find that to be fun. Just
Hmm.
their enjoyment makes me happy. But I specifically pick Pulp Fiction because it's literally like the movie that people are the most surprised I've never seen, because almost everyone that I know loves it. And I do really like movies like that. Like I like Quentin Tarantino. I like movies in that vein. But I've just never ever watched Pulp Fiction. And yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
would take those three:
Oh,
Lady Hawk, 10
that's
Things
really
I Hate About
interesting.
You, Pulp Fiction.
I think I would have a gate on the deserted island where I would not allow Pulp Fiction in.
I love that.
No, 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 no. Nobody can't
I
come in.
love that.
Okay, do you have any strong fears and do you use them? Have you ever used them in a book?
Spiders. I haven't, like,
Ooh.
I am so afraid of spiders, especially big spiders.
Have you been
And I
bitten?
attribute this to having watched part of arachnophobia when I was like 11 years old in the dark. Right. Like, just, this was just, that was really stupid on my part. But like, I have never, and I'm actually rectifying this next summer. It's interesting that you asked this question because I'm so terrified of spiders that like there are whole parts of my bedroom that I don't go around at certain parts of the year because I know that there's a hole there somehow, and spiders keep getting in that little part of my bedroom, and I don't like.
Um,
There's a bag. This is so embarrassing. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. There's a bag on the bottom level of my TV, like the TV cabinet in my
yeah,
bedroom
yeah.
that I have never moved since I moved in because every time I touch it, there's a spider in it. And so like I just don't even touch it. It's literally been there for 10 years.
It's a
And the
spider sanctuary.
it is a spider sanctuary. They're very happy over there and they don't bother me and I just let them be. But I'm so scared of them that I will not go to Australia because of the spiders, like specifically. And next summer I got asked to speak at RWA Australia. And so next summer I'm going. And I just decided
Oh,
like I have to face this because it's keeping me from, doing stuff. But yeah, I've been terrified of spiders my entire life.
you
Yeah.
have you absolutely have to go. I went in 2015 and it was wonderful. It was terrific.
Did you
And
see any spiders? Like
I don't
I'm
remember
just
seeing any spiders. What I do
okay.
remember is a display. This will make you feel better. A display at a wildlife place that went to with Anne Gracie. And Gracie took me and Mary Jo Putney. And there was a display. And it basically was bragging. And I don't remember the specific numbers, but it was like Australia has 10 of the top 12 most poisonous snakes. And
Oh
I thought,
gosh.
I wouldn't brag about that.
I know, right?
I wouldn't be putting that out there. I would keep that
I
very,
love that.
very quiet.
Oh, me too. But
So,
I can't write about arachnophobia stuff because
oh,
even just like I wrote paranormal for a while and I tried to write a spider-like paranormal character, and even just imagining it in my head makes me like I'm even just now my heart is beating a little
oh,
bit faster.
oh,
Not in a bad way, but just like because I got to face this, right? Like if I'm going to go to Australia, I know I'm going to spend at least half of the plane ride talking myself down from like it's going to be okay. We're in public places. We're in, like areas that it's going to be fine. So like I
yeah.
have to kind of face this a little bit. But
Which
yeah.
which city is it in?
Um Perth, I think is
Oh,
the
cool.
yeah.
On the west coast.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
really neat. Ooh.
Fremantle, I think, is
Hmm.
where the actual conference is, but I think
Hmm.
I'll fly into Perth or something like that. Yeah.
Hey, if anybody from the Romance Writers of Australia is listening and would invite me, I would come too.
Yay!
Because last time I
That'd
was
be
in
fun.
Melbourne, and I'm fairly good at killing spiders.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I will need that help, I'm sure, because even though everyone that I've asked has said I've never seen one when I went, I know that what's going to happen to me is I'm going to see at least one, and then I'm going to be like, I told you, I told everyone.
So, okay, another question to let the readers get to know you. This is a toughie. I will admit it. It's a toughie, but it fascinates me. Um, have you had good advice that you have ignored, and how did that turn out?
Oh, in my writing career?
Or in life?
So, in general, you know me, right? I'm a question the premise person. I ignore good advice for a living. Like that's my kind of like mantra is like, hey, that might work for you, but it doesn't work for me. But I
No,
still,
back because I think you may need to explain the question, the
oh,
premise a
question
little bit.
premise, right. So like one of the things I do in my nonfiction career is I have a mantra that's question the premise. And so it's the advice that you get that may be really great for you actually may make me not able to write. And the good advice that I was going to talk about was I got encouraged very early, actually by my agent originally and by my editor, to outline books. And so I spent my whole romance, well, not all of it. My first seven, I think I wrote without outlining, and then I started outlining. And then when I found myself writing things that I was like, this just doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel like me. And I went back to pantsing again, and all of a sudden I was writing like myself. And so I feel like there's just so much good advice out there that is not appropriate for any one individual person. But so I love that you asked this question because I see it happen with writers all the time, and I get passionate about it because it actually happened to me. Like I feel like I wrote some books that I don't love, which is why they're not available for sale anymore, because like I was trying too hard to be somebody that I wasn't. And so, yeah, I love that question.
I have said on the podcast before that, and feeling the pressure, which is meant, I think, as encouragement, but feeling pressure to outline, to plot. I've lost two books completely, and a third book, it took years and years and years and years to pull away from that and just write it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tough. And I love question the premise about everything. It's probably journalism background. You know,
Yes, exactly.
It's also that says you, lady.
Yes, exactly.
I think
It's part stubbornness, right? Like it's definitely part stubbornness. But it's weird that you mentioned that about journalism. It totally is, for me at least, it was based in the years that I spent at a very young age thinking I was going to be a journalist, like in high school, because it's the if you know how to get someone to answer a question that they don't realize that they've accepted a premise that you want them to accept and they don't want to accept, right? Then you can often get them to reveal information. And one of my very early journalism teachers taught me that. And I was like, oh, so people accept premises without realizing it. And that kind of set off this whole thing for me of just like, oh,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and you have to stop from answering it's often set up as a yes or no, and you have to stop, or an either or, and you have to stop and apply that critical thinking to the question before you jump to the answer, to think of whether the question is worthy of being answered, and especially in the way they want you to answer it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, being stubborn really helps.
It does.
So, here's a question from a reader. Do you miss the characters when you finish a book? Do you think about them after? And then I would ask too if that has then led you to writing additional stories or books connected with those characters or carrying on.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I would say it definitely did. It's one of the things that makes me like mystery more, because there is a group of people that I get to really sit with and just get to know them very deeply and keep unpeeling layers, right, on them. Because the very first series that I wrote was a historical romance series, and it was essentially the same characters in every single book. Like there was a primary romance in every book, but there was also the secondary, like moving the other characters along in their books. And I actually saw Nalini Singh do this in her Psy Changeling series, and I loved it. And so that just felt really comfortable for me because I feel like I want to not leave those people because I like them. So if I don't like them, then I'm like, yeah, you can like just I'll forget that you exist. But like
Don't you kill off the ones you don't like?
sometimes I do. Like I'll admit I question the premise of like you can't kill a romance hero at one point because I'm like he was a huge jerk, right? Like somebody that I do not want to hang out with again. Are you sure by book 7 we can't just kill him? And my co-writer at the time was like, yeah, no, like we can no, you cannot kill a hero. That's not okay.
So how do you start a book, and what's your favorite part of the process?
So my mysteries usually start with the crime, like what happened. Although the last two have been very much a what's the word? Like the environment itself. Because usually in my mysteries, I
Mm.
research a whole new environment. Like I did actors and actresses in book 1. I did a bunko group in book 2. I did homeschool moms in book 3. Like, so I did all these little like subculture research
Hmm.
projects for myself. And those dynamics of people really fascinate me. So like if I walk into a bunko group, because of course I joined a bunko group, and just to research all of the things and learn all the people, then I'd be sitting at the table and I'd be like, why would someone in this room kill someone else? Like, why would that happen? And so almost all of my mysteries start with the crime that is built out of the environment that they're in or the subculture that they're a part of. So all those dynamics like underneath the surface of that's what fascinates me about mystery. Like
So
I want
you
to take pretty normal people and figure out why they would kill someone.
But you have to know the crime before you start writing, or do you just start writing, throwing those characters, those interactions on the page?
I usually know how the first death happens before
Mm.
I start. I never know who the killer is, like ever. And often I don't even know who the killer is until like the very end of the book. But I almost always know what the first crime is, like how the first body gets dropped, before I get too far into the process.
Okay. And so, what's the most difficult part for you?
The end, because
Mm.
you have to like tie up all the threads. I almost always have to go back because I'm a thread opener, like professionally. I hate closing loops. And so, like, I'll have to stop at about the 3/4 mark. Usually, it's right before that we find out who killed whoever died. And I literally have to go back and read the whole book again and make a list of all the open threads that I have not yet closed at the 3/4 mark. And then I just have this sticky note list of like, do this, don't forget this. She said this once, they wore this color, blah, blah, blah. And I have to like close all of those loops. And it's really hard because even when I close some of them, I almost automatically open loops again. And I have to be like,
Yeah,
stop it,
yeah.
close the loops, Becca.
I tend to write, like, I will open a loop, like you're talking about. I'll raise something, and then I will do bracket later, the word
Mm,
later, and then I will write. It could be a whole scene, or it could just be a few sentences about how that plays out later. And then there
mm.
could be a third one right behind it that says even later or
Oh, I
later
like
later,
that.
and
Love
then
that.
and write some more about, because there's usually, when you open those threads, um, especially if it's a significant one, I think there's usually at least two more touches,
Hmm.
to
Yep.
make it feel whole and
Yep.
round.
That's very true. I almost always have to go into the middle somewhere and like you say, touch that thread again when it's a big open loop that I haven't seen since the beginning.
Yeah.
What's super interesting too, I don't know if this happens to you, but I will often find that I've subconsciously laid the groundwork for some of those things while I'm pantsing. And then
Yeah.
I go back in, I'm like, oh, I always wondered why she never closed this door. And now I get it, right?
Isn't that
Because it's like,
wonderful?
that's the thing. I love that about the way my brain works. I'm just like, thank you for handling that autopilot because I am not smart enough to do that on my own. Like,
I had a huge lesson in that early on, where it was my third book. Wrote my third book, and I gave it to the group. I had a critique group at that time, and one of the people in the group said, "Well, you do realize this is the second book of a trilogy?" And I said,
mm,
"No, you can't fool me, because a trilogy has to have 3 books, and this is only one book. So this is not the second book of a trilogy." And she said, "Go back and read it. You've got all the stuff in there for book 1,
mm,
and you've started the stuff for book 3." And darned if she wasn't right.
I
And
love
there was
that.
all this stuff laid out for book 1, and totally unconscious. It was just, you know, it's a gift that comes from your imagination, but I also think it's some that we internalize a lot of. When you've consumed story
Hmm.
voraciously all your life, I
Hmm.
think we internalize a lot of that, and so it's sort of
Oh yeah.
there, just under the surface, coming
Yeah.
through, and it's not like we haven't worked for it, but it's not coming out as conscious work. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So, which of your stories that you've well, I'll say written. I was going to say published, but it's written, that has surprised you the most? How did it surprise you? And did that piling on questions? Did that give you anything that you then applied to books that followed?
Oh, interesting. Um, I would say actually the very first series that I wrote surprised me a lot. It was a Highlander romance books, and while I had loved them, I'm not like super historical research person, but it kind of surprised me at how much I enjoyed writing that and writing that big of a world. It was a very major conflict that I wrote around. And I found myself a little bit interested in how much I was loving going through and making things line up with real history and all that stuff. And what was really fascinating is that when I stopped writing those books, I never went back to historical
Huh.
again. And I do think I may at some point. I have one particular series of books that take place in the Reformation that's kind of knocking around in the back of my head that I really would love to write sometime. But it was a series I had pitched originally to my agent, and he was basically like, no one wants that era of historical romance because it's a very weird era. But with
Hmm.
indie, I feel like it's a series that I could probably do okay with. And what fascinates me about that in particular is it brought up a theme for me that I never really realized was there in my books, which is like I'm a person of faith, but I don't consider myself to be like extremely religious, even though I work in a church. But I definitely have a desire to like show like people of faith are real people.
Hmm.
So like several of my characters in that series were like real. I had a priest, I had a monk, like several people of faith, which again, like, I don't know how this is a theme for me, but showing that they're not only real people, but showing their intelligence and their critical thinking skills and the reality of their doubts and their fears and how they handle those things. And I don't consider anything that I've ever written to be Christian in terms of like it's not evangelical, right? Um,
Hmm.
but it just fascinates me that I would even subconsciously be like, you can be normal, like, and also have faith. And so that kind of was weird for me. Yeah.
Do you think when an agent says something like that to you, I don't want to make this too big of a deal, but
Right.
is it a wound? Is it a wound that writers can overcome? How
Mm,
best to overcome? How fast can you overcome it?
yeah.
Should it be a wound, or well, that's a should. We probably shouldn't put a should in there.
Right.
But I'm just wondering how you see that. having an effect on your individual creativity or feeling about it? Is it, was it a wound? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm putting all this on you. Or has there been time? Has time put it? I'll just stop
Yeah.
asking questions and leave the ones that I've asked on the table.
No, that's a great question, because I think a lot of people hear this from either their agents or from other people in the industry. And for me, whenever I've heard that from somebody and I've thought, uh, you know what, I want to write it anyway, then I'll just write it anyway, because I feel like the stories so often, when they come out of me, I just can't help it. I'm like, well, I'm just going to have to take a knee on whether this is going to sell or not. And I'll just write it anyway. Like I wrote a steampunk, historical romance when they weren't popular. And so I'm like, well, that's coming out. So here we go. Um, but in that particular case, I think I wasn't ready to write that story yet. And actually, this is really interesting you asked this, because I had written the first 4 chapters of that book, and sent it to him like as a proposal, sort of, and then said, "What do you think?" And he's like, "I love the story, but nobody's buying this era right now." And so when I put it aside, I thought, should I just write this anyway? Because I was so excited about it when I wrote it. But then I'm like,
Mm,
no, I'm going to move on to something else. And now that I've had, gosh, I don't know, it's been 7 or 8 years of perspective, I actually think that I didn't know the story enough to write it, and I think I need to sit on it for
mm,
another like
mm,
little while. So I actually feel like the feedback he gave me at the time was right. It wasn't the right time for me to do that, and I see that now in retrospect. But I felt that also at the time. But when I've gotten feedback like that, where I felt, well, I have to write it anyway, like it's just going to come out, then I did it, and that was also the right thing to do, even though that book also did not sell well. But I was okay with it. It's almost like that's just part of my personality. When I see that I've done something and it's made me learn or helped me to grow in some way, even if it wasn't successful, I still consider it a win, because it's like, well, I'm leveling up, you know.
mm, mm,
So
mm-hmm.
that's how it was for me, at least.
And I don't know how much I think I'm leveling up, but I think I'm keeping the cranky muse from from getting even crankier.
I love that.
So I feel like I need to do those things. Um, so that leads us very much to, where do your stories come from? And this is a question from a reader. Um, she says, I know one author who dreams her stories, and another has a character suddenly taking up residence in her head. And then this reader asks, so how are your beautiful stories born? I think that's so nice.
Yeah, that's so nice. That's such a great question. Um, my stories very much come from what if scenarios, and often they happen while I'm actually in a place. So,
Mm,
like I was in a small town that I wanted to set this in, and I just kind of had this flash of like, oh, what if this happened and that happened? And then it just kind of unfolded in itself. And it's interesting because the character was not part of that scenario. And the character actually had been kind of, coming to me over time. But I
hmm,
get to know the characters as I write them. Like I don't really know much about them at all when I start. Um, and I just kind of jump in and I'm like, oh, she seems like she'd be this person, and a little bit of this mixed with that, etc. But almost always the actual germ of the story is an idea that I have of like, well, what if this person killed someone and tried to hide the body? Well, what if this happened, right? So I'm a what ifer.
huh. So you don't hear voices, huh?
No, I see movies. I
Ah,
see movies play, and then I
okay.
just kind of write down what happens and get to know the people as I see it.
And in those first flashes of the movies, then do they set things that cannot change about the story, or can you mold and shift and change things?
I can usually mold things. Like I very rarely have I written a story where I go back and don't feel like I can change it. The one thing that doesn't change though is like once I get to a certain point in the book, the main characters are usually so solidified for me that I'll actually go back and be like, "Ooh, that was not really them. Like, I need to
Hmm.
change this,
Hmm.
so that it's more consistent with who they are." And once I've written them for a while, they're very cement in my head, like real people. Yeah.
Hmm. Sometimes mine come into my head, and they, from the time they start talking, I have a sense of who they are. I
Oh,
can't
I
tell
love
you
that.
specifics, but I feel who they are.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, then I'm going to combine these two questions from two different readers because you'll see the thread. One asks, when a cover image doesn't match the character description, and that reader says it's a pet peeve of theirs, how does it feel for the author? And the other question is, how much does it bother you to find editing errors after your book goes live or is
Oh,
printed? So those are from two different readers, and you can tell it's, yeah.
I love that. The cover image thing used to bother me a lot. Like when I was sort of younger in my career, I had this thing of like, I need the cover to be exactly, exactly what. And then I had an experience where I read somebody else's book where the cover did not match up to the person, and I forgot about it until they mentioned it on social media. And I was like, no, it was fine. That
Oh,
was fine. And then she's like, no, this, like, she had red hair or something like that. And I'm like, oh, right. I forgot what the cover looked like when I started reading the book.
interesting.
So I just stopped caring, I think, at that point about it. But the editing errors thing, that really bugs me. Like it's part of why I like indie so much is that um, I have the ability to change that. So
Mm,
I'm constantly changing errors and re-uploading books if I find them because I
yep.
just don't want there to be errors in the books, and so they really do bother me. In fact, that's probably the place where I have talked back to reviewers in the past, where like I'll
Ooh.
apologize if they find it, but I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me go change that." And because I feel so bad about that error being in there getting past my QA. So, yeah, it definitely bugs me.
Yeah, I don't know that. Well, I do know a couple authors who might say it didn't bother them, but
Yeah,
most of us, I think, are like, eh.
yeah.
Um, okay, and then I'm going to combine a couple other questions. One is from a reader, and she wants to know where you write. What is your favorite place to write and why? Does it have, and I love this, an inspirational view? And I think
Mm.
she's wishing an inspirational view for us. And then I'll combine that with like, do you have a routine?
Mm. I do have a routine. I definitely do. I usually, I'll almost always drink the same cup of coffee,
Your
right
vinegar.
Right, I know, right? Like, I have the vinegar first and then the coffee. But I definitely do like to drink coffee when I write. It's a ritual thing for me. Or tea. I used to drink tea, but I just really like the taste of coffee. Um, the view thing, though, I actually noticed a difference with myself. So I have a really beautiful painting behind my computer. My computer is faced up against a wall, and I have this really gorgeous painting of a forest, and I find myself staring at it quite a bit, and just kind of losing myself in the detail of the painting. And I noticed about myself that I really do crave visual things when I
Hmm.
write. When I spent a winter in San Diego one year, because my sister lived there, and I had a beach view out of my office, and I was on the second
Ah,
floor of this condo, and literally out, 40 feet from my deck was the cliffs and the ocean in La Jolla.
wow.
And I was so stinking prolific in that apartment. I wrote more than I've ever written anywhere. And I found myself so attracted to just the noise of the ocean, and
Huh.
then also the smell and the
Yeah.
view. So I feel like it's a full sensory experience. And I've always wanted to go back and try and replicate that and just see like if it would make me that prolific again. But Yeah, I do notice that I'm very visual. I need something to look at for sure.
But you don't, this is self revelatory, you don't find that it distracts you?
No, no, not me, not me.
Oh,
And I
that's
think it's
great.
mostly because I don't notice it until I need to think about something. And then when I need to think about something, I kind of need to be distracted by it.
Mm.
But otherwise, I can just kind of block everything out. Like I used to write a lot in the coffee shop near my house. Like I would just go there as soon as they opened, and it was me and a bunch of like farmers drinking coffee at 6 o'clock in the morning. And it was
And for
awesome.
them, it was lunch, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. Like they were hilarious. Like all the things that you think of when you think of a group of old men, farmers at a coffee shop in the morning, that they were that thing. And but I used to just like literally tune them out. I forgot they were even there, and they would have left by the time I finished my writing sessions. Like I just kind of zone out when I'm in the zone, so I tend to not be able to see the visual stuff. But then when I need to stop and think, I almost need to look at something and focus on something to distract my brain so I can like think about the story.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. I, from working in newsrooms, I always said that there were two kinds of people. You either had rabbit ears, where you were picking up all the pieces,
Yeah.
everything that's being said and hearing all the bits of conversation, or blinders. And it
Blinders.
sounds
Yeah.
more like you're a blinder.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can zero in. Um,
Yeah.
it's a great skill. Although I will say I knew a lot more of the gossip than
Yeah,
your rabbit
yes.
ears.
Well, when I'm not writing and I'm just doing working, like, because I'll sometimes go and like do ads or something like that at the coffee shop, just because I like the atmosphere. Um, I will listen all the time if I'm not writing. And actually, I think I talked about this once on an interview once. I was present for a slew of blind dates once at my coffee shop
Oh.
where it distracted me so much from writing. I used to go to the coffee shop just on the off chance that there would be these blind dates there. And there was this one guy who dated like three or four different women in a row and like just, blind dates. And I used to kind of not blog, but like Facebook about them and just kind of be like, oh my gosh, I saw another cute couple. I think they're going to make it, and all that stuff. But I'm like, I'm not writing. So then I started writing at home because I wasn't getting anything done.
Did any of them make it?
I
Any of
don't
the
know. I've always been so fast. It was
oh,
right before COVID. So
oh
um,
no.
I was always so fascinated by that whole experience. But I haven't seen the guy again, so I'd
Oh,
like
well,
to
that's
think that he
hopeful.
got married and the other cute thing is it was all people who were over 40. It was like this silver fox kind of feeling,
Ah,
guy.
yeah.
And so they
Yeah.
were all kind of my age or older and all dating kind of again, I guess. So I loved it. It was so cute. But yeah, I don't know what happened. It didn't have an ending yet. So maybe it will someday.
Okay, we somebody's got to write the story.
Yeah.
We'll make up our own ending.
Yes.
Okay. Now another reader asks if you could write a book with any author, alive or dead, who would you want to work with and why? And
T.S. Eliot.
oh, I was going to say somebody with a beach house.
Oh, I know, right? Yes, like Hemingway.
Okay, why T.S. Eliot?
Like ever since I was an English major undergrad in college, like a lit crit major, and I read The Wasteland, and then I literally hoovered everything that he wrote. And I mean, I've read the abstract weird plays that no one ever produces and everything. I did my senior capstone thesis on T.S. Eliot,
Hmm.
and he fascinates me so much because I feel like he has this similar uh, feeling to me where I'm like, I'm a very academic, intellectual, analytical person, but I'm also this like very connected spiritual person of faith. And he kind of walks this very
Hmm.
interesting, hypercritical, like he was really obsessed with paradox, like with especially with paradox theology. And so that for me has always been something that I was really fascinated by. So I would love, because I think his fiction is actually some of my favorite work, not just his poetry or his critical theory,
Hmm.
but I would love to write a play with T.S. Eliot. He wrote this amazing play in that was set around the time of the Thomas Becket and the Crusade, right? Like the Crusades.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And it was all about this man who decided to martyr himself and what the process of that was like, of like dying for your convictions. And it was so fascinating. And I felt like I would love to write a play with him that was about a different topic, but similar, in wrestling with some of those really intellectual things. And yeah, I would like, no question, it would be Eliot for sure. No one would ever read it. It would be completely obscure. It would get totally lost in history. But man, I would have a blast. It would just be the best. Yeah.
Okay, but if you martyr yourself, is that not suicide and that's a sin? Don't you have,
Right.
by martyrs, somebody else has to martyr you?
Yes, like that was the whole paradox of that whole play, was this
Okay.
idea of, if I allow them to martyr me, am I not going against, you know what I mean? Like, and of course, like whether or
Okay.
not that's true or not, and whether that really happened with Beckett or not, we don't know. But we do know that he died for his conviction. And so
Yes.
I've always felt like it was so interesting to actually dive deep into somebody's head who's experiencing that kind of conflict, and then try to resolve it, like try to resolve the conflict, internal feeling. So yeah, absolutely. It's an intense, I don't recommend that anyone reads it. It's very obscure.
So now I have to ask you, what do you read for fun, Becca?
um well, thrillers, mostly like thriller and mystery. I've been reading a ton of paranormal women's fiction lately because I just love the idea of like midlife magic kind of being
Hmm.
that theme. And I've been hoovering every PWF I can get my hands on. And they're so good. They're just so good. But that's kind of what I read for fun right now, and nonfiction. I read a lot of nonfiction for fun.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so somebody has not read any of your books and they want
Mm.
to. Where is the best entry point for somebody new to you?
So, because almost everything I have is under pen names, I always recommend people start with R.L. Syme. Penance on the Prairies is the first book in the mystery series that I have right now. Because all my romance stuff is either under a pen name that I don't like talk about, or it is down. Like I pulled all my historical
Hmm.
romance down, all my suspense down. So I recommend starting with Penance on the Prairies. It is not a religious mystery, but the pastor main character is definitely, but she's a baker. Like the pastor is a baker by trade. Um, so yeah, Penance on the Prairies.
Do you have a book that your faithful readers, and interesting, I use the word faithful, might have missed, that one you might consider a hidden gem?
I do think that my historical romance is a hidden gem. Like I loved those books, but I pulled them down specifically because I
Well,
want to
Becca.
rewrite them. Like I really, really want to rewrite those books at some point. And so, but you can get them if you email me. Like I'm happy to give anyone those books if they really want to read them. They're just not available for sale, other than, the paperback that somebody sells for like $900 or
Isn't,
whatever.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
The old
Don't pay that.
paperbacks put it. Don't. Yeah, please,
No.
readers, don't do not be fooled. Those are not authors putting their old
No.
paperbacks up for three figures and more.
No.
The
No, we
authors are
don't get
looking
any
at
of that
going,
money.
"What? Are
Yeah.
you crazy?
No.
I'll give you one for $1 from under my bed."
Right. I still have several if you really want one, I can
Yeah.
say. But I'm more than willing. I get a lot of mystery readers who ask me like, "Oh, I saw you have historical historical romance, can I read those? And I say, they're not available, but I will give them to you if you want. Because, with the caveat of like, it's an uncompleted series. There should be 7 books and there's only 6, but anyway, yeah.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that, I'm always tempted to say, is there anything I haven't asked you that you don't want to answer?
Oh.
See if anybody will be truthful about it.
So I would say what I don't want to answer would be if you asked me what my pen names were, I probably would have to say I plead the fifth, just because I try to keep those two things so separate from myself.
Okay.
But anything, I can't think of anything. These questions have been fantastic.
Oh, I'm glad.
This has been so much fun. I really appreciate
well, we have
you asking me to do this.
We have a little more to do here.
Okay.
We will include all the information about how folks can find you in the show notes, but do tell us real quickly your website.
So it's rlsyme.com.
Okay, so now we come to my very favorite part, the either or rapid fire. No thinking, you just have to respond. Nail polish or bare nails?
Oh, that's so hard.
Right out of the gate, Becca.
Oh, right out of the gate, man. These are good. Oh, that's so hard because I have to say bare nails. Yeah.
Okay. Grab the best first or save the best for last?
Oh, grab the best first.
Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics?
Summer Olympics. Although I have to say, if I could put curling in the Summer Olympics, because I was so tempted to pick winter just because of curling, but I like the whole of the summer better. Yeah.
Okay. Mustard or ketchup?
Mustard.
Spring or fall?
Fall.
Appetizer or dessert?
Appetizer. I can't eat dessert, so appetizer by default.
So I guess I can't ask you ice cream or cake?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say, like, if you made me pick just because it's summer, I would probably say ice cream for the cool, but yeah.
Yeah, and I can't off the top of my head think of an either or with appetizers.
Oh, right.
Well, okay, salty or sweet?
Ooh, salty.
Heels or slippers?
Heels.
Cruise or trekking vacation?
Oh man, can I say neither?
You're not going to take any vacation at all?
So it's so strange. I have a fear of cruises, and I don't know why. And trekking for me is like I'm not a camping person. If I had to pick, I would say cruise because I do actually like hotels and things like that. But so yeah, I'll say cruise.
Okay. I'm thinking, maybe because there are a lot of books out there, including one by me, that kills people off on cruises.
On cruises.
We'll have to start killing people off on trekking vacations just to make this fair.
New series.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee. Yeah.
Cat or dog?
Cat.
Mountains or beach?
Mountains.
Paper plates or best china?
Definitely China.
Day or night?
Night.
House decorating or gardening?
This is another one I'm tempted to say neither.
Ooh.
I'm so awful. I have such a narrow things that excite me. If I had to pick, I would say house decorating just because of Christmas. I do like Christmas decorating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Leggings or sweats?
Leggings, definitely.
Sailboat or motorboat?
Motorboat because I don't have to work at it.
Pickup or sports car?
Yeah, you'd think because I live in Montana, I'd pick pickup, but I would pick sports car. I like how small and easy to maneuver they are. Yeah, sports car.
Yeah, I want a big car.
Yeah.
I want to be out there I want to have some muscle behind
Oh,
me.
right.
So, opera or show tunes?
This is so hard because I
Is this
love
is
both.
Oh, okay. So this isn't a neither.
No,
Yay.
this is
Okay.
like this is I'm a musician by background, and so I love about opera. I love the language and just the richness of the material. But with show tunes, they're so singable, and so
Mm.
I feel like we sing a lot of show tunes for fun in like groups and stuff. I would never sing opera for fun because I'm not an opera singer, but I have to say show tunes, but I'm tempted to say both.
That was not a rapid fire either or, Becca.
Right. I wasn't super rapid fire. I'm really bad at this. I always want to contextualize everything.
Hot air balloon or a train trip?
A train, definitely.
Daisies or roses?
Roses.
Jigsaw puzzle or crossword puzzle?
Yeah, crossword puzzle.
All right, the last one. Would you binge watch or would you make the watching last as long as possible?
Oh, definitely binge watch. I'm like, I don't want to wait. I want it to happen right now. I want to know.
Well, this has been terrific,
Yeah,
Becca.
thank you so
R.L.
much.
Syme. I really appreciate you being with us, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that the readers have enjoyed getting to know you better. And we hope that you listeners will come back another time to hear more episodes of Authors Love Readers podcast. Until then, wishing you lots of happy reading. That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye.